Squirrel sitting over in turn 3 and 4. I would not doubt if they threw a caution. If it's kind of running around out there. They tried to catch it before the race. Just keep that in mind. What is it? It's a squirrel. It's not wearing a helmet. Not one of them squirrels. A real squirrel.
Now, I want to take this moment to test drive a possible new segment that I'm going to try out on the show. The car of the day! Everyone likes when we do something of the day. Everyone loves that. So we're going to start doing car of the day. Starting first with the Ford Pinto. What a cute little name. Now, I personally yearn for the days when Ford would make cute little compact cars with cute little names like the Pinto, or the Focus.
Hocus pocus, there's pizza on your Focus.
Or the Fiesta, instead of these big, overweight behemoths like the Ford Expedition. If you drive one of those, I don't like you. And you probably smell bad.
Stinky.
I also miss when cars had little gimmicks, like the Volkswagen Beetles being famously unreliable, or Jeeps having that trademark extremely uncomfortable ride that would often result in them overturning on the highway. And in the Pinto's case, the car being a deadly weapon of mass destruction. You see, the Pinto was an explosive success for Ford, and sales blew up to 800,000 units in its first 2 years. Mind-blowing. Isn't that right, JFK?
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys! Wow!
Now you're probably wondering why I'm making so many painfully obvious explosion jokes. Well, it's because the Pinto's cute little gimmick, which first began to be discovered 2 years after being launched, is that it is a bomb.
Bomb has been planted.
Now, the Pinto was a bit of a rush job. It was made as cheaply as possible, meaning that anytime a smelly engineer would approach the cool, hip guy in charge of the program with concerns, the man in charge would often brush it off and tell them to make it work in time for deadline. Long story short, this resulted in the Pinto's signature party trick.
My mango,
Blowing the fuck up.
and then act like I don't know nobody.
See, the fuel tank was placed directly behind the rear axle of the car, which not only gave it that thick rear end, but it also meant that in a rear end crash, the fuel tank would smash into the axle with all its sharp edges and bits, and immediately burst into an inferno, which is exactly what you want to happen in a minor fender bender.
Terrorists win.
Go big or go home. Honestly, it would give me a lot of peace of mind knowing that if someone crashed into the back of me, it would take us both out in an inferno. Now, that might seem bad, but I'm pleased to report that it actually gets much worse. The car also had a terrible crash structure, and the floor would often separate from the fenders, meaning that flames from the burst tank could easily engulf the interior and an entire family that was inside. On top of this, the bodywork would often crumple in a way that would jam the doors shut, trapping all the passengers inside in a crash. Sounds like a fun weekend getaway. Now, the NHTSA studied a handful of rear-end crashes involving Pintos and found that 27 occupants had died in these crashes, with a further 24 occupants hospitalized with burns. Imagine saying that you died to a Ford Pinto. That'd be pretty humiliating once you got to the pearly gates. Now, that was only a handful of crashes, because it's hard to know the true number of deaths directly caused by the Pinto's bomb-like superpower. But an investigative piece published by Mother Jones claimed that over 500 people died due to Pinto crashes, with estimates that the true number could be as high as 900. I guess it is kind of embarrassing that the Ford Pinto had a much more positive KD ratio than I did in Call of Duty. Anyways, the notorious lore of the Pinto now lives on through various laws created as a result of its antics, as well as over 117 lawsuits aimed at Ford, which I'm honestly surprised were not more. However, I guess it is a little hard to file a lawsuit when you are dead. Anyways, that's been the car of the day! Tune in next time and we'll see what other death trap car companies are making.
Round one. Game over.
Nothing says class quite like a limo, we all know this. Especially if it's just a Volkswagen Beetle that's been stretched into a man-made Frankenstein monster of a limo. So let's look at some of the most classless, terrifying, and unexpected limos of the automotive world that should have stayed in the drawing books. First up, clocking in at bubblegum pink and about 4 LeBron Jameses in length is the not-so-mini Cooper S limousine. Made for the Olympic Games in Athens for some reason, if you somehow thought a Mini Cooper limousine wasn't cool enough, the whirlpool jacuzzi in the back might change your mind. If a Mini Cooper with a hot tub somehow didn't tickle your fancy, you're probably an American, so allow me to introduce you to something a little more your style, the Ford F650. This symbol of true American grit has everything that an American could ever want. Big enough to be a nuisance to every other driver on the road, blind spots the size of a small nation, and possibly the ugliest interior I've ever seen. Not only that, but it also features a pole in the middle of the sitting area for, structural purposes or something. For a country with a weird fetish for massive oversized cars, the F650 is the ultimate class symbol. Have you and your hippie friends ever wanted to drive down the Pacific coast with nothing but reggae in your ears, diesel in your lungs, and a turning radius wider than that of a Boeing 747? Well, you're in luck with the 1965 Volkswagen Bus Limo. This repurposed microbus has been converted to a macrobus with 33 windows, benches with seating for 12, and over 7,000 wedding bookings every year. If hotboxing a microbus is on your bucket list, hotboxing the macrobus might just set a new record. Now, if you've ever wondered what an Oldsmobile Tornado would look like if it had a baby with an airplane, you probably need to rethink your life. But just to humor you, here's the 1968 Kershaw Cruise Air. It's a man-made horror beyond your comprehension that blurs the lines between limo, RV, and airplane, as well as blurring the lines of the laws of physics, as it's capable of reaching over 100 miles per hour. Now, why would you need a limo to go 100 miles per hour? I have no idea. Go ask a wedding reception, or maybe a group of teenagers running late for the school prom. Rumor has it that John DeLorean was doing an impressive amount of drugs in order to create the original DeLorean featured in the Back to the Future series, but a guy named Rich Weissensel, which I'm probably butchering, decided that he wasn't doing enough drugs and decided to turn the icon into the DeLimo. Created by Frankensteining a bunch of damaged DeLoreans together, and with enough butterfly doors to take flight, the DeLimo proves that with only 6,000 DeLoreans still in existence, they're starting to evolve in ways scientists never thought possible. If you've managed to make it this far down the list, you're probably thinking that it can't get much more impressive than the limos previously listed. But what if I told you it does? Introducing the world record holder for the longest limo ever made, and it's called the American Dream. Clocking in at 100 feet and an extra 1.5 inches where it matters is this incredible Cadillac made from 6 Eldorados and a dream. Once you get past how ridiculous it looks,
you're ugly, you're disgusting, I'm going to kill you.
So you might want to brace yourself for its exhaustive list of features, including room for 75, a helipad, a driver's cab at the front and rear, and a pool, though it's out of function, I believe. This pinnacle of luxury comes with a million bonuses and only one drawback: drivability. Piloting this behemoth requires days of planning ahead for a route where its ridiculous length and mythical turning radius won't get it stuck. It may not get much time on the road today, but I am interested to see what would happen if it did get stuck. It would likely require a towing operation equivalent to that of the cargo ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal. If there's one thing that I hope you guys took away from this list, it's that limos need to get longer. Let's make longer limos. I want limos that span the curvature of the earth. I want limos that can go to space. I want limos that...
High drama for Thierry Neuville. With a pierced radiator somewhere late in the stage, an overheating engine could spell disaster. In remarkable scenes, desperate to replace the water coolant with any liquid available, the Belgian uses the first thing that comes to hand, a giant bottle of beer.
Alright, so it was a bit of a shorter episode this week. However, now we're going to make up for it with a little extra bonus round at the end. Let's have some rapid-fire automotive journalism. This random Oregon woman used a bottle of Mountain Dew to get out of a felony car theft charge. Now, this woman was found on a 1996 Toyota Camry that was listed as stolen. However, she offered the owner a Mountain Dew in exchange for dropping the case, and somehow that worked. If anyone plans on stealing my car, please get me a Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper.
The crossover between cowboys and cars seems to keep getting closer and closer, because this cowboy invented the most American way possible to keep track of your car keys. It's called the truckle, and it's pretty self-explanatory. This is probably the only cool way to wear your keys around your crotch. McLaren has successfully clinched the Formula One Constructors' Championship. However, the driver's title is still up in the air, and it might be seeming a little easy for Oscar Piastri, whose opponent seems to be a coughing baby. But wait, what was that? What was that? What was that? Oh my god, it's Max Verstappen! That's right, despite Red Bull being absolutely all over the place this year, they seem to have figured out their car recently, and after a rough start to the season, Max Verstappen has been winning, and he's been doing it in style, and he's been dunking on the McLarens. So, is a Max Verstappen title fight resurgence still in the cards? I'm not sure, that's quite the point deficit to make up, but apparently when fighting McLaren drivers for a title, it's kind of like if you lower the rim and pretend you're LeBron. Speaking of Formula One, the rights have moved on from ESPN and have been purchased by none other than Apple TV. This just goes to show that even the most popular motorsport in the world is not nearly enough to get my ass to download an Apple TV subscription. Still, could be worse, at least it's not Netflix. Ugh. Some things just go together. Peanut butter and jelly, Tesla and dog poop, fishnets and femboys, but there's no two names quite as synonymous with each other as Le Mans and Porsche. However, that comes to an end. After spending years and millions trying to win Le Mans one more time, Roger Penske and his Porsche team are doing the honorable thing and giving the fuck up. After Max Verstappen won this week's Formula One Grand Prix in Austin, Texas, they handed him this trophy, which is pretty cool. Most people think it's supposed to be a bull's head or something, but actually, I think it's a uterus, which is really ironic considering it was handed to him by Greg Abbott. Speaking of the United States Grand Prix, the Circuit of the Americas has renewed its contract with Formula One to host the US Grand Prix through the 2034 season. That means we'll be seeing the Utero Trophy for many more years to come. And that about wraps it up. If you couldn't tell, it was a bit of a slow week in the automotive industry. But join me next week when I find some other bullshit to talk about, probably.